Hello and welcome to the show that gives you an insight into the hottest issues of the day. You're watching The Big Picture. Today we will talk about policy imperatives for India and Pakistan to take their bilateral ties to the next level. We evaluate where the two neighbors stand in the backdrop of two important political developments. Asif Zardari's India visit and an announcement of a $10 million bounty on Lashkar-e-Toiba chief Hafiz Saeed by the Pentagon. The Pakistan president will be in India on Sunday and he has a scheduled lunch meeting with the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. This meeting is expected to take further the revived bilateral dialogue with a cross-section of issues featuring in their interaction. Even though it has vehemently raised the issue with Pakistan in the past, India is unlikely to harp on its request to hand over the LET chief for his role in the 26/11 attacks. There could be, however, a perfunctory mention of the terror dossier against Saeed during the talks with Zardari. It is also believed that the action against the LET founder will not be made a sticky point, as this could create a schism between the civilian government in Pakistan and a Pakistani army establishment. In the wake of confidence-building measures like relaxing trade and visa restrictions with each other, neither side wants to upset the shaky period of peaceful relations between the two nations. Tonight on The Big Picture, we discuss the brittle peace that exists with Pakistan currently, the possibility of taking bilateral ties to the next level, the Zardari visit itself. We'll also try and wrap our heads around whether there is a possibility of the April 8 meet being more than just a photo op and whether there could be some substantial progress on parlays as well. We'll top it off by assessing the Pentagon bounty on Hafiz Saeed, especially the timing of the announcement and whether this could be a deliberate ploy by Washington to further its own agenda. I'm Athar Khan, and joining me on the panel tonight is Vinod Sharma, political editor of Hindustan Times, Ashok Mehta, retired general and defense analyst. Also joining us on the show tonight is Ramesh Bhandari, former foreign secretary of the country, and later in the show we'll be joined by Faisal Abbas on the phone line. Faisal Abbas teaches at the South Asian University. I'd like to start the show with Vinod Sharma as usual, if I could. Now, Pakistan watchers, of course, a lot of them say that there are indications that the upcoming meet is not just, of course, they're not going to be discussing how good the food is and the Ajmer visit, but it could also be a sounding board to more serious discussions. First thoughts on the meeting?
You see, first of all, one must say that because it's a private visit, the dialogue between our Prime Minister and the President of Pakistan isn't going to be a structured dialogue. That, in a way, helps because a private visit is not really, doesn't really provide the right context for expectations of a breakthrough.
Right.
So this will be an opportunity for the two leaders to informally discuss issues.
Right.
And out of these informal discussions could emerge, perhaps sometimes later, a formal agenda or a structure. Because when leaders discuss and they broadly agree on issues, then they go and instruct their bureaucracies back home,
right,
to take the dialogue forward on those lines. But there is a caveat which
right,
I would like to elaborate, that Mr. Zardari has to seek re-election next year. And this government, our government too, hasn't been all that focused on foreign policy, given the very complex nature of domestic politics and the various issues that
internal machinations that they have to face.
So I think that this is a good opportunity for the two leaders to meet and discuss issues, but to invest in this dialogue more than this will be perhaps not a great idea.
Right, right. Before I come to General Mehta, let me go across very quickly to Ramesh Bhandari, who's joined us on the program. Mr. Bhandari, this trip, very heavy on symbolism, some people would say, going to Ajmer, to the Sufi saints' Dargah. Also, you think this trip, the heaviness of the symbolism, your thoughts on that? First thoughts.
Well, the visit to Ajmer Sharif has been done before also. But the important point is that this is a first visit after Musharraf at a presidential level. And the other point is that realization we are both neighbors and neighbors can't be changed. Therefore, we have to go and concentrate upon how we can further and improve the atmosphere amongst us, particularly now that the strategic importance of Pakistan to the United States of America has certainly diminished considerably after the collapse of the Soviet Union and with peace returning normally in Afghanistan. Therefore, for Pakistan, which is also at the moment in a severe economic crisis. The sooner they are able to have better relations with us, the better it is. I should imagine that they will sit together. They were, as Vinod Sharma very rightly pointed out, this is not a structured meeting. There are no Sherpas, so to say, who prepared the ground or prepared the agenda. There will be a general dialogue, general talk, and it will be very much more on the friendly side, without trying to rake up any issues which are
right. Right, Mr. Manhari. Stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a bit. Ashok Mehta, let me ask you this. Over the past year, in fact, New Delhi, some people say that has very deliberately, very quietly though, tried to sift away the Pakistan terror suspect angle and try to focus on, say, trade and the MFN status, and also confidence building measures, easing restrictions on visas and trade as well. Do you think that's the right way to go about it, to take that relationship with Pakistan forward? Or do you think the government really had no other option in taking that forward?
Well, that was the only way forward, because in the second round of the revived dialogue, I call it the revived dialogue after the Mumbai attack, there's been no progress. There's no breakthrough on any of those 8 or 9 items, including an item one had hoped would be added, that is Afghanistan, but we are nowhere near that. So if that component, there is no breakthrough, and I'll just come to the reason why there is no breakthrough here. The best course is to get on with trade and visa restrictions and a lot of other ideas that have been germinating over a period of time but never implemented. And the historic visit last year of the Commerce Minister of Pakistan and the reciprocal visit by Anand Sharma this year, I mean, this happens after almost 35 years. So this is a breakthrough. But yet we have to understand and appreciate that Pakistan has certain constraints, and not the least of these is the gentleman on whose head there is the bounty.
Right.
And he commands a fairly large, popular feeling. But coming to this, what I call the revived dialogue, what we are really looking at is, and this is the opportunity during the current visit, because Rahman Malik, the Interior Minister, is part of this delegation. Yeah. One of the reasons why India is unable to make the so-called concessions, whether it is Siachen or Sir Creek or wherever, is that we've had no good news on the reaction or the what the Pakistan government promised to do judicial action against the perpetrators of the crime.
Fair point, fair point.
And so if there is some movement, now that the Judicial Commission has gone back, we are still hoping that something will give. And if that something gives, then India has all the reason, and this is something that the Home Minister and the Interior Minister will discuss.
We'll talk about,
is how can we move this forward?
Right,
so that
absolutely. Let's get another voice on the panel, General Mehta. We've also been joined by Faisal Abbas, who teaches at South Asian University. Faisal, give us a sense of what the Pakistani side would be thinking about. What is going through Asif Zardari's mind right now? He has enough on his plate already, but this trip, the timing, the symbolism, how do you gauge all that? Give us a perspective of what's going through the Pakistani side's their minds right now.
Well, good evening from my side. And first of all, I think the very well mentioned notion that it's not a direct visit to deal with some outstanding issues that India Pakistan have, but it's very personal thing that he is doing. I mean, on a lunch or dinner, whatever he's having with Manmohan Singh, I don't know how much or what kind of issues they are going to deal with. The only thing that I can see is that it's one of the kind of track 3 or whatever track we call it, kind of diplomacy that we have to keep continue, so that any other implication that can have a negative impact on the ongoing peace process, relationships of India-Pakistan, or building a better ties will definitely not work against us rather than work in favor of us.
Right. So do you see, like General Mehta mentioned, over the past 1 year, Faisal, there has been a certain thaw in the relationship between India and Pakistan. That's obviously a positive one. But do you agree with that? There has been a thaw that is quite visible. Would you say that that's true?
Well, I think postures from both the sides are very positive. But one thing that I can see is missing is basically thought-provoking process that is coming up from both the sides. Most of the things that we can see from Pakistan or India side is basically a reaction to an action. That is, whether India is doing something, Pakistan is reacting, and whether Pakistan is doing something, India is reacting. So instead of this reaction policy framework, if we come to an action policy framework where we'll see that if we do something good, it might be that the other neighbor will bring it more good to that, and that we will move in a very, very right direction.
Right, Faisal. Stay with us. I'll come back to you in just a bit. Vinod Sharma, very quickly before we go into a break, there has been, of course, internal sounds made by the opposition. The BJP spokesperson yesterday said that unless and until Prime Minister Manmohan Singh unequivocally says to the Pakistan president that, look, act on terror suspects, give us the people we want, there can be no forward-moving dialogue. How much of that will weigh on Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's mind when he meets Sardar?
You see, I think that it's, obviously the opposition has a role to perform in our democracy, and they tend to play to the gallery. I mean, this is not the way you talk to a visiting head of state, even if he's on a private visit.
Absolutely.
And especially when you're hosting him over a meal. But of course, there are ways of telling, sharing our concerns and our priorities, and he will delineate his priorities and his concerns.
Right.
And I think that until now, as General Mehta pointed out, you see, post the resumption of the dialogue, which he calls revival, I think that India and Pakistan have done well. They have been doing diplomacy away from the glare of the cameras.
Right.
And I think that it is the quiet diplomacy between our two countries which can fetch us results, rather than hyping a visit and raising popular expectations over the outcome.
Right.
The trade is a major issue, and there I think Pakistanis have wanted petrol from India, and there is a great possibility of trade in petroleum products.
Right.
There is a possibility of India supplying electricity to the people of Pakistan. Now, mind you, if you have visited Lahore recently, I mean, hours on end there is power cuts, and if electricity provided by India brings relief to the people of Lahore, then I think things can change on the ground.
Absolutely.
And that is the way you can counter the popularity, quote unquote, of people like Hafiz Sayed, who reached the people first before the state, Pakistani state, in times of distress.
Right, right. Quiet diplomacy is what you're saying will work. Of course, that's some thought echoed by a lot of people in India as well. We'll take a short breather right now. We'll come back, gentlemen, and discuss the other big issue in the backdrop of this visit, the announcement by Washington to put a bounty on Hafiz Saeed's head. We'll talk about that and trade as well after the short break. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching The Big Picture. Romesh Bhandari is still with us. Mr. Bhandari, if I could ask you this, also in the background of this visit is, of course, the announcement that came just recently that Washington is putting a 10 million bounty on Hafiz Saeed's head. Of course, India has time and again said that it holds Hafiz Saeed responsible for 26/11, the mastermind of that plot. My first question regarding this is the timing of this announcement. Do you find it, let's say, interesting, to keep it kosher, the timing of this announcement, or is in the least, or is that just me?
I think it's just coincidental, and I want you to note that they have changed their stand. There's not a $10 million bounty. They are saying that we want credible evidence in regard to Hafiz Saeed, which would enable us to convict him. So therefore, they are looking out for evidence, credible evidence against Hafiz Saeed of being involved in terrorism, and terrorism which is also affecting America. So that is what they're going in for.
Right.
Now, you see, I think as has been rightly pointed out, this is a unstructured, unofficial visit, social visit to a large extent. I don't think they're going to go into these issues too much, and it's going to be a large lunch also with a lot of other people. A lot of pleasantries will be there, and I think there'll be very much more the atmospherics which will be important, which will be highlighted, and the type of bonhomie that they would like to reflect, that we are very good friends, and hopefully that this visit may result in some announcement in regard to a high-level, top-level contacts between the two countries. Maybe an invitation to our Prime Minister to visit Pakistan. I don't know.
Right, right. It's a very interesting point that you put forward, Mr. Bhandari. Let me put this to Ashok Mehta. The reciprocity that Mr. Bhandari talked about. Some people say that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh should go to Pakistan next, and of course, maybe then we could have some formal treaty signing agreement, like you mentioned Sir Creek and you mentioned Siachen. If there was some progress on that front, wouldn't that in fact allay any fears that the Pakistani military has? Maybe a no-war pact on paper. We do sort of agree we were going to go to war with each other, but maybe a formal no-war pact, maybe talks on Siachen. Wouldn't that help? Do you think that's the need of the hour?
Of course that will help, but I think we are far from that. I agree entirely with what Mr. Bhandari has said, that I think this is an opportunity as much for India as it is for Pakistan. And the government of India and the Prime Minister of our country must make much of Zardari. Right. Because Zardari has been, he's a powerful figure in his party, and he is a good friend of India's. I recall that three things that he has said which establish his bona fides as a true friend of India. One, he was the first to say that India is not a threat. He also talked about this cross-border terrorism being inimical to the interest, and he was also the first to talk about no first-use nuclear. That is Pakistan. But we all know that he very quickly retracted all these statements under pressure of you-know-who. So here is a man who's got his heart at the right place. The government of India during this visit should make much of him and, of course, do the kind of conversation that should promote and facilitate that the thing that's going on at a glacial pace, and that is the revived dialogue. Right. And get it to a pitch to where we can at least go get a Siachen or get something going so that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, before he demits office in 2014, has one of his unsatiated ambitions fulfilled, i.e. a visit to Pakistan.
Right. Let me get in a quick question to Faisal Abbas before I come to Vinod Sharma. Faisal Abbas, Ramesh Bhandari, India's former foreign secretary, thinks that the timing of what Washington has announced on Hafiz Saeed, now he's corrected me and said they're looking for credible evidence of his involvement in all these activities. Do you think, do you agree with Mr. Bhandari, first of all, saying that the timing is just a coincidence, or do you think that there is an agenda that Washington is following, maybe trying to cool down the supposed thaw in India, between India and Pakistan, because that works to their advantage?
Well, I think the thing that I can see as a observer of small political things that are going on in India and Pakistan and the foreign elements that are there, I think one can also link this thing with the ongoing smooth peace process that is going on since last year and a half between India and Pakistan. So it might be, on one hand, one of the lady from the U.S. Department of State coming to India saying that in Iran, India's national responsibility is lesser than the global responsibility, so India has to think again when it goes to Iran. And on the same day or after day or two, they will be sending a signal to a person who is kind of controversial in the sense that he has some stakes in India also that are also controversial. So this might have a kind of signal that might derail the whole peace process between India and Pakistan, and the immediate response of Indian side to have a happy yes to that will definitely have some implication on the smooth process of peace that is going on in Pakistan. That's one of the personal observations that I can have. Right. But I hope that these things that are coming from outside, if they are going to destroy the relationship between, or at least detract the relationship for certain number of months or years between these two nations, which are almost under 10 in terms of population, and there are a number of other things that are there. I think we are unable to say ourselves civilized and
Right,
also,
right, Faisal.
Yeah.
Right. Stay with us. I'll come to Vinod Sharma very quickly. Do you agree with what Faisal said? Could there be an agenda that Washington is pushing, or just a coincidence like Mr. Bhandari just said?
No, first of all, I must say that, the reports in the Indian media, there was a bounty on his head, were based essentially on what was stated verbally by the US official. But what was rendered on paper was from day one, the offer was for credible information, which will be tenable in a court of law against him. That's one point. Second point I want to make is that, look, I think that neither Mr. Zardari, who is at the fag end of his career in the of his term in the of his presidency, first term in the presidency, and Mr. Dr. Manmohan Singh, given the political situation in our country and the oppositions, especially the right-wing opposition's proclivity to turn it into some kind of a vote bank issue, cannot experiment beyond a point. And my personal view is that both countries would be better off and would face least resistance from those who have a vested interest in keeping perhaps hostilities alive, to do things which will create a vested interest amongst the people in good ties between India and Pakistan. That is as follows: that India must provide stuff which is not available in Pakistan and which LET cannot provide.
We're talking trade, of course.
Which is what? Which is that there are huge queues out of gas stations across cities in Pakistan. There is no electricity, and because of no electricity, no power, there is no employment. People are at the wit's end to get resources to be able to obtain a square meal.
That India can provide, of course.
Which you provide. If you provide that, I think you are beating the LET on their own ground, and that is what they should be doing, rather than Siachen. I don't perhaps think, and I don't share the optimism, that we can really do much on Siachen, because we too have today in our country a set of security ayatollahs who would not allow that to happen.
No dearth of those in the country. So, fair point. We'll go to Mr. Bhandari, but before that, we'll take a short break. Mr. Bhandari, stay with us. I have a question for you, especially on trade and how important it is in India-Pak relationships and the bilateral ties that we enjoy. Don't go anywhere. We'll take a small break, come back and talk more India-Pakistan after this short break.
अनसीन अननोन एलिमेंट्स और एक्सप्रेशंस जब तुम्हारी स्पेस में आते हैं उनको पकड़ना। फोटोग्राफी जहाँ इतनी आसान हो गई है वहाँ पे उतनी ही कमज़ोर भी हो गई है। मैं हूँ रघु राय, हमसे मिलिए गुफ्तगू में।
Welcome back. You're still with the big picture. Mr. Bhandari is still with us. Mr. Bhandari, very quickly, if I could ask you this, like Mr. Vinod Sharma pointed out right now, that trade, of course, something that we can provide Pakistan, people-to-people contact can go a long way in bettering ties between the two nations. Would you agree that hateful political rhetoric, more than that, it's economy and trade that can actually move the relationship forward? And if history has taught us anything, is that two nations bound by commerce together rarely let politics affect their ties. Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that entirely. That is exactly what I have been advocating right from the beginning. The more we intensify our economic ties, the closer we will become. They will ride over the elements which are hindering us. You see, Pakistan today is also buying a lot of Indian goods which come there via Dubai. It is so absolutely totally nonsensical when we can just go hop right across. And I think this can be mutually beneficial. There are certain people in Pakistan who feel that if they open up the borders to trade, Pakistan would get swamped because of the disparity between our economic growth and theirs. But I don't think that that is really a well-founded argument, because that can be modulated. And I think we should go, and what we should aim at is to focus on the ever-increasing constituency in Pakistan, which is for better relationship between our two countries.
Absolutely.
That alone would be able to modulate the adversary attitude that the army has been adopting all this time, because the very survival of the army in Pakistan really depends upon a hostile atmosphere with India.
Right,
and
sir.
if the hostility disappears, then the question will be asked, why are we spending so much money on our armed forces and on our defense?
Point taken, fair point. Let me go quickly across to General Ashok Mehta. Very quickly, sir, if you could, where is the Pakistani army in all this? Of course, they'd be watching this very carefully as well. How do you think they're going to react to this?
I think, you know, we've got these two tracks. One is your political track, on which movement is very glacial, but so while the focus must be on trade and improving people-to-people relations, I believe that the army has finally come around, seeing the dire conditions in Pakistan, economic conditions, the overall state of the economy. I think the Pakistan army is very much on board this track that the focus must be on. To be able to get from a friendly neighbor all the help that India can provide, that is not forthcoming there.
Right.
So the ideal, of course, is to get the China model. In other words, put your difficult issues on the back burner, like the Kashmir issue, which many people still believe that many Pakistanis want that model. But that will not happen.
Right. If I can interrupt you, we have very little time. Last word on the show to you, Vinod Sharma. Expectations from Sunday. Is it too early to actually gauge anything, or is something brewing?
You know, I'll simply say I'm happy that President Zardari has not cancelled his visit, despite the US announcement, which I thought was a trifle mistimed from his standpoint, and which triggered a whole lot of protests within Pakistan, involving both the United States and India, because the announcement was made from the Indian territory, from within India, by the US official. So that is one silver lining. And the other point is that the Pakistan army perhaps may also want to have these people, see the back of the behind of people like Hafiz Sayed.
Right.
But then they need help, and that help, the only creative help which can be rendered by India, again I emphasize, is to become, in popular perception, a helpful neighbor.
Absolutely.
Who would provide so much of help that the people of Pakistan don't have to look up to the kinds of Hafiz Sayed for providing them relief.
That's a very important point that you raised. That's how we have to end the show today. We're all out of time completely. Like Vinod Sharma and my other guests said, of course, the focus now should be on people-to-people contact, trying to provide Pakistan with the friendly neighborhood force that we can become, that India can become, and of course replace the elements like Hafiz Sayed who come there in the times of atrocity where no one else comes, even the Pakistani army can't come. This, of course, is a wonderful opportunity for the two nations, this upcoming visit. Let's see what really happens on Sunday. For that, we'll have to wait till Sunday. Thank you, and thank you for watching Big Picture today. We'll come back with another edition of the Big Picture very soon. Till that time, goodbye and thank you.